Welcome back to Willcutt's Custom. My name is Dustin Honeycutt, and this is another Wargame Replay. So today we're on Apocalypse Imminent. This is a 2v2 map. Me and Dan have decided to use US Marine decks. This is something a little bit different than what we're used to. We haven't really experimented much with Marine decks. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. It worked pretty well for us. This is only the second time using my deck, and the first time Dan's using his deck they actually just made before this round. So if we get it started here. To start off, I'll be going up the left side, trying to get as far as I can, hopefully into Charlie if even possible. Dan, on the other hand, he'll be going through the middle and the right side. Usually there's not much going up that side at the beginning. Usually most of it's coming through Delta. It's a big fight to get to Delta first. So that I was simply wanting to, well, we were simply wanting to get that, as well as Dan putting a defense in this area. Let's speed this up until we start. Okay. So to start out with, I put a command unit in Golf. Dan puts a command unit in Kilo. That allows us to start gaining a significant amount of beginning points. I'm sending in a Cobra and 2 sets of Delta Force to Delta. That way I can drop them off and kind of see how he's pushing up, if he's trying to push up. You see we take Golf as they take Charlie. That was pretty quick. And you see I sent up this twin Huey. I simply send him straight into Charlie to see how far he gets. I end up doing the same thing with the Prog, with both Progs as well. So I'm going to be defending with both that Delta Force and these anti-air and Humvees, as well as the Cobra for simply a recon. But my pushing force was actually all LVTPs with Mark 19s, which are 40mm grenade launchers. And they also have M2 Brownings, which are machine guns. The good thing about these LVTPs are they are actually amphibious, as well as they have a very strong armor in the front. Here I am sending in an Avenger to kind of get a little bit extra anti-air right here. And I saw they had some robots here. Robots are actually long-range ATGM launcher vehicles, but they also carry infantry. So I wanted to smoke this area, that way I could send my LVTPs across the river without getting shot at before I get there. As you see over here, Dan's doing the same thing I did. He's just simply pushing all of his transports up to see how far they get. You can see some enemies trying to get to Echo, but at that point it wasn't that big of a deal. We had some anti-air to stop them if they came further into Juliet. See my LVTPs finally moving across the water. I did send in a recon Humvee. I actually wanted to send in an LAV so it could move across the water with them. I accidentally called in a Humvee, but it actually worked in my favor because I was able to put him right here at this crossroad and simply watch this whole area to see if anything attacked. As you see, this is where Dan finally hits a stopping point. you see that smoke worked perfectly. I was able to stun the robots before they could do a lot of harm to my infantry. The only thing I can say that I did wrong is I didn't tell the LVTPs to move. I told them to attack move. And that was kind of my fault. I wasn't really thinking about that at the time. With attack move, as soon as they saw something that they could shoot, they stopped and started firing, which meant that my infantry ended up having to get out in the field because their transports died before they were in the town. If I would have simply told them to move, they probably would have been to the town and unloaded before I had to really worry about it, and probably would have saved a lot of my infantry in that situation. But right now it's just simply a battle to see who takes this town. By this point, Dan's trying to push into Foxtrot, trying to get some anti-air and some recon over this right side to see what they have in Echo. As well as he's pushing up a Cobra on the right side because they have a very big blind spot here, and he was trying to get around to the back. So I was like that. This push was actually doing very well until I got to this point, because he's in my fours and he had napalm. With all that, he was able to pretty much wipe out the rest of the troops that I had. Well, most of them anyway. And you see me plant a marker there. That was actually me telling Dan that I needed some type of air support if he could spare it. He actually ends up sitting in a napalm phantom. Unfortunately, I had some very strong AA, which took out his phantom, but that was a much needed airstrike that probably allowed me to push further up than I could have ever pushed without it. So as you see back here, Dan's just simply flying along in his Cobra, going through the back. They have no recon or anything to see anything back here, so we're simply able to just push right around. I think the main reason for this is they were so distracted with what I was doing that they didn't even notice what was happening in the back. You see my Marines were able to take out the infantry here, which were anti-air, so they didn't have much. These Urals were able to give me to resupply the Marines, give them the rest of their rockets back. At this point, Dan saw a UAZ, which I tried to fire artillery on, but I did not hit it. So I'd like to focus on that Cobra, well, both the Marines and the Cobra, because both of them play a very important role at this point. So I have these Marines simply moving through the town to see what they can take out, and I end up pushing them up to here. Now you see that Cobra taking out Alpha's command unit. That was probably the winning blow for us. Probably the game deciding blow for us, because they had to then stop calling in anything and strategize how they could get Alpha back. And as you see, Dan almost took out that UAZ that I didn't hit with artillery. You can actually see my artillery coming into it. But unfortunately, those Strellas were able to take out that Cobra. And at this point, my Marines are simply firing at, I think these are T-80s right here. One of these is their command unit. I think it's this one. It is this one. I saw it, but I didn't. I was trying to get my Marines to shoot it, but I think it was just out of range. And at this point, I'm trying to push up Urals to my Marines, but the BMPs was able to stop the heroes before I could resupply anything. You see Dan pushing up more stuff in the Foxtrot, trying to hold it. And I think here soon they should be able to take Alpha back. At this point, I sent in a Phantom to take out everything here. I knew there was some very strong anti-air as well as that command unit. Basically, I was just suiciding that Phantom, but it was well worth it because of the amount of napalm I was able to put in. My Marines here are honestly just ducks in water. All they have are anti-infantry availability at this point, so there was nothing they could really do except stand there. And by this time I had an attack ready to push into Charlie. So these LAVs are smoking this town, and so I can get ready for an attack into Charlie. Unfortunately, they were also getting ready for an attack into Foxtrot. They push Foxtrot extremely hard at the exact same time that I'm pushing Charlie. They start a little bit faster than me, but at this point, Dan was pretty worried about Foxtrot. As you see, he was trying to get me to kill that anti-air with my artillery, and he was worried they were going to push through him. That's why I kind of decided to push my attack just a little early. I knew it wasn't smoked out good enough, but I wanted to distract them so they could possibly stop attacking Foxtrot and try to defend me. My transports run to some BMPs, but those 40mm grenade launchers made quick work of the BMPs. Right here they try to napalm me, but I was already out of the way before the napalm got there. And at this point you see that me trying to attack them didn't really have much an effect on them attacking Dan like we hoped. So they were able to push through pretty much all of Dan's forces with their TAs and BMPs. Unfortunately, there were really nothing we could do. We didn't have the points nor the armor or anything to really stop it. Dan did call in Sea Cobra and an LAV to stop them, at least stop them at the bridge, if nothing else. And over here you see me still pushing through Charlie. They had some ATGM, so I had to push around the left side because they were able to kill one of my LVTPs. So by this time, I call in command unit here and a command tank. So since I had those two, it started letting us gain a lot of points at one time. We were actually gaining 9 points at a time by this point. And this time they tried to do an attack on me like they did to Dan. Luckily, by this time I did save up enough points to where I was able to call in enough air support to completely obliterate this attack. I have 3 A6 intruders, which have 12 227 kilogram bombs on them. These tanks are not really expensive tanks. Even though he did send a lot of them, which they could have pushed through me if I didn't have air support, but luckily I did. And as you see, this will completely wipe out their complete attack. Had a few stragglers still trying to push up, but didn't really have anything to do an actual attack with. If he would have tried to push through this road, by the time he got here, my Delta Force would have completely annihilated them. I did send in some napalm to stop them. But they knew by this point there really wasn't anything they could do to stop a win. And as you see, that's when they leave the game. Dan and I were extremely happy with how that went. We think that a big reason that we won was the fact that they had that big blind spot with no recon guarding them. If they would have possibly had recon and stopped us from, or even enough recon in alpha with AA to stop his Cobra, and they would have done that push again, could have been a completely different story. It's very possible they could have actually pushed up and possibly pushed through us. But you know, it's always the little things that usually ends up giving you a loss, which is what they experienced. Which is what they experienced there. So that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.